Good morning, and welcome to First Parish Church at Stowe, Acton, a welcoming and spiritual community. My name is not Jenni Edgerton, as it says in your order of service, but Brendan Chetwin, and I serve as your Vice President of the Board of Trustees. For those visiting FPC for the first time, we welcome you. Please let us know you are here by filling out one of our visitor information cards in the pews and hand it to an usher, drop it in the plate, or hand it to Meg in the back, our welcoming staff member. Our administrative staff and board are listed on the front of your order of service. Please feel free to ask me or any of these people for more information. If you would like a large print order of service or hymnal or an assisted listening device, please ask one of our ushers. Our assisted listening devices are actually small radios. Anyone is welcome to use one to listen to the service from another space in or around our building. After the service, please join us for coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall, which is one level down at the other end of our building, or in a breakout room if you're joining us online. I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements in our order of service, and also to invite you to check out our webpage for more information. You can also sign up there for our newsletter and email alerts. And now, let us come together for a time of community singing and worship. And we do have a few more announcements before we get there.
Thank you, Brendan. I'm going to get taller. Hold on. Magic. Good morning. I am Meg Rivers-Wright, and I am the parish administrator and membership coordinator here at FPC. And I'm here to invite you to our newcomer coffee hour, which is happening today right after the service in the parlor. It sounds so fancy. The parlor, which is directly across the hall through that door. And this is a great opportunity. We haven't had these in a while, sort of long ago in 2019 and before we had them. And the pandemic sort of put them to rest for a while. So we're bringing them back. It's the newcomer coffee hour. It's a chance to meet other folks who are, I feel too tall now, who are new or relatively new. If you've started coming sometime in the last year, please join us. That's new. And it's also an opportunity to ask questions of the minister and to have time with the minister. She's a busy person at the end of service, so get a little more individualized attention. Please join us. And in addition to that, if you have been coming and would like to become a member, we can sign you on to be a member in the membership book, and we'll also have the opportunity to do this on April 21st. Couple Sundays from now. Thank you. We now have a very exciting announcement about the Olympics.
Greetings. Next Saturday, April 13th, FPC will host the 2024 Olympic Auction. We will celebrate unity, togetherness, and generosity. This morning, we'll present a snapshot of auction items and experiences like international cuisine and travel opportunities, mini sports challenges, affable bartenders, savory and sweet morsels for sampling, many opportunities to support FPC programs and outreach, and an invitation to enjoy the spirit of community. By the way, the online auction opens tonight at 10 o'clock through April 17th. Check it out.
Greetings, everyone. This year we will offer a culinary journey around the world. Group dining opportunities from Argentina to Italy with a stop in Mexico can be yours. There's even a make-your-own international cocktail challenge available. For travel, you can bid on a week in beautiful, beautiful Maui or a hop to the Cape for a fun weekend.
Hi. The Olympic spirit isn't just about winning. It's about fun and connection. Come to the auction and try your hand at ring toss or pop bottle stand-up, maybe heart bucket rings, and of course, the always popular hula hoop.
Hello. At the auction, you can show off your culinary skills and enjoy other people's kitchen creations. Sumptuous, savory, and sweet finger foods will abound, along with 5-ring Olympic cake. Friendly bartenders will offer you Nectar of the Gods, FPC style. You can donate at the food sign-up Genius on the auction site. Thank you.
Greetings, generous soul. Your support is crucial for the programs and outreach effort at FPC. Our music, arts, and social justice initiatives thrive when the congregation comes together and supports the necessary fundraising. At the auction, all of this is done while having a great time. One more thing, take a chance on the cash raffle. Tickets are online. They're at coffee hour, and they're sold on the auction site. Cash, or just put it on your tab.
Hi, everyone. Our auction next Saturday will give us the opportunity to reconnect and relish the joy of being together, sharing laughter, wear your Olympic costumes, everyone, and good times. Cheers to enjoying an evening in the company of our wonderful community.
As we conclude our skit, let's revisit the symbolism of the Olympic rings, the unity of nations, the joy of shared experience, the spirit of giving, and the power of community. Let the games begin.
Good morning. Our opening words come from the Reverend David O. Rankin, titled Believing. I believe in the holy, lifting, sustaining among us, within us, around us. I believe in living, with a song to sing in awe, in adoration, out of joy, out of praise. I believe in loving, in intimate communion of gentle compassion, and in the giving of roses. I believe in seeking, daring to explore, doubting without fear, cautious in certainties. I believe in prophecy, the spirit of outrage, clapping like thunder, healing the world. Do we have someone from the first Chalice class who'd like to light the chalice this morning? No, I didn't think so. So I'll light it during the hymn with, let me say these words. The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It was designed in World War II to mark safe houses as we were helping people, as the Unitarian Service Committee was helping people escape Nazi persecution. And so I light our chalice today for safety in times of struggle. May there be refuge for everyone. Please rise in body and spirit and join hymn number 359, When We Are Gathered.
These first land acknowledgements have been created by our community members with Native American heritage. We would like to acknowledge that this service is being held by a community that gathers on the stolen traditional lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Pawtucket, and Wampanoag people. We pay respect to all those indigenous peoples who nourished this land before us, and we strive to do likewise.
Good morning again, everyone. If there are any kids in the congregation who'd like to come forward for the Message for All Ages, you're welcome to join me up here and grab a pillow and sit up here on the floor. Rayla, our Director of Religious Education, is away this week at a really important conference, which is a special conference for Black, Indigenous, and people of color religious leaders in Unitarian Universalism, and they are in Puerto Rico this week, meeting together. Hi, so Kim is going to help me online with sharing some slides up there. Do you remember what this is? That's the jet pig. We talked about it last month in the Message for All Ages, and I know some of the older kids, I think, have been talking about it in religious education. Can the congregation help me remember, what does L jet pig stand for? Let's sort of the next slide. So what's L? Love. Love. What's J? Justice. E? Equity. T? Transformation. Transformation, that's right. P? Pluralism. Pluralism. I? No. Interdependence, yes. And G? Generosity. Generosity, yes. A flower, yes. A rainbow, yes. Olympic rings, yes. Does it remind anyone else of Pokemon? Yeah. Yeah? One person does. Yeah, it does. Why does it remind you of Pokemon?
I mean, like, all of the different colors are the different, like, energies.
Yeah.
There's the grass, electric, fire, fighting, psychic, and water.
That's right. In Pokemon, the Pokemon are divided into different types based on energies and water and grass and stuff. And there's one Pokemon, Eevee, and Kim, we're still seeing the slide with the letters. When we get to the one with the Pokemon, yeah, still letters for us. There's one Pokemon, Eevee, that evolves into a bunch of different Pokemon. Now, every Pokemon, not every Pokemon, lots of Pokemon evolve when you do things with them, and they become a more ferocious Pokemon. But Eevee can evolve in a bunch of different ways. And we're having trouble with the slides there, but Eevee, oh, here we go. Yeah, so this, a DRE named Regina McConaughey, she's the one who came up with the idea that the values reminded her of Pokemon. And just like all the values come from love, and from love we get to equity and justice and pluralism and stuff, from Eevee we get a whole bunch of different Pokemon. We get Jolteon, and Umbreon, and Sylveon, and Glaceon. Well, when I saw this, I could not help but draw my own values Pokemon. So here they are. This is Lovey in the center, and in the upper right with the scales, that's Justicion. And then on the right we have equal signs all over, Equition. And then Pluralismion has two heads. And Transformation has the trans flag stripes and is turning from a walking Pokemon into a swimming Pokemon and has wheels on it as well. And Interdependencion has a web around its neck and it symbolizes the earth with water and leafy parts. And then Generosition is covered in bows for gifting and little coin symbols because generosity does also mean money. What do you think? Should I become a special Pokemon artist? Yeah, that's my spare job. So, just like all the values come from love and all the evolutions come from Eevee of these different Pokemon, and so this is just one more way to understand our Unitarian Universalist values. In case, Jetpig wasn't working for you, now you also have Pokemon. And that's my silly message for all ages today. Thank you. I think Sharon is going to come help me with, which one of you would like the chalice? Yeah? This weekend, we got the very hard news in our community that a life was lost here in Stowe. And unfortunately, and many of you have heard this already, but for some of you this may be news right now, this was something that happened in our parsonage, which we rent next door. Not to members of our FPC community, but members of our larger community who are our renters there. And so I wanted to take some time this morning to just have space to honor and mourn the life of Nevaeh Goddard, who died under circumstances we still don't know, and to send prayers for the Curry family, as Shane Curry, Nevaeh's boyfriend, is now in custody as they investigate what has happened next door. So holding these lives in our hearts and in our thoughts, we're going to take a few minutes of musical meditation. And I want to let you know that as we explore things, we may be holding some sort of vigil for honoring and recognizing this tragedy later in this week. So pay attention to FPC Announce if that's something that you would be interested in. And thank you to our musical team for letting me ask for an additional piece of music today. We send our prayers of peace, of well-being, of comfort, and of sorrow to the families of all those involved. Blessed be, and amen. At this time, we invite joys and sorrows from our gathered community here to be shared with our community. And our lay minister, Ingrid, is going to share those we've received online first. And then we invite those in the room to share joys and sorrows, and those who are joining us online too as well. I want to begin by lighting a candle of joy for our new handrails. Did you notice them? This is an increase of accessibility to our pulpit, and I went up and down extra times this morning in celebration. So I'm not going to list off the team of people behind this because I think I would forget one, but thank you to all those involved in making this happen. As we hold all of these joys and sorrows in our hearts and light two last candles, one for those left unspoken and one for the ongoing cost of war, that we remember our longing for peace. Let us come together in a moment of quiet meditation, holding all this in our hearts. Blessed be, and amen. And now please rise in body or in spirit and join in our sung prayer that is our hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. when I gave my part 1 sermon on the Article 2 thing happening in Unitarian Universalism, I mentioned briefly this reading that used to be on little red wallet cards, actually still is on little red wallet cards that some Unitarian Universalists carry, titled, "What Do Unitarian Universalists Believe?" by David O. Rankin, who was also the author of our opening words and closing words today. David Rankin passed away this week, and I went back and read his Berry Street address, which is an address given at the UU Ministers Association meeting every year. It's one of the longest standing regular annual addresses in the United States. And he told the very powerful story of being a minister in the area and the interactions he had leading up to the Jonestown massacre. It's a very powerful essay. I recommend it to you. And I was just stunned by the deep thought of this colleague who I had never met. And so I wanted to go back to that red wallet card and share his words with you today of what do Unitarian Universalists believe. This is David Rankin's opinion of the answer. We believe in the freedom of religious expression. All individuals should be encouraged to develop their own personal theologies and to present openly their religious opinions without fear of censure or reprisal. We believe in the toleration of religious ideas. All religions in every age and culture possess not only intrinsic merit, but also potential value for those who have learned the art of listening. We believe in the authority of reason and conscience. The ultimate arbiter in religion is not a church, nor a document, nor an official, but the personal choice and decision of the individual. We believe in the never-ending search for truth. If the mind and heart are truly free and open, the revelations that appear to the human spirit are infinitely numerous, eternally fruitful, and wondrously exciting. We believe in the unity of experience. There is no fundamental conflict between faith and knowledge, religion and the world, the sacred and the secular, since they all have their source in the same reality. We believe in the worth and dignity of each human being. All people on earth have an equal claim to life, liberty, and justice, and no idea, or philosophy is superior to a single human life. We believe in the ethical application of religion. Good works are the natural product of a good faith, the evidence of an inner grace that finds completion in social and community involvement. We believe in the motive force of love. The governing principle in human relations is the principle of love, which always seeks the welfare of others and never seeks to hurt or destroy. We believe in the necessity of the democratic process. Records are open to scrutiny, elections are open to members, and ideals are open to criticism so that people might govern themselves. We believe in the importance of religious community. The validation of experience requires the confirmation of peers who provide a critical platform along with a network of mutual support. Thus ends the reading. And now we have a plate sharing introduction from Neil Saunders. Our plate is shared every month, 50-50 with different agencies that we voted to support, and Neil will introduce you to this month's.
Good morning. I had the great privilege of accompanying Bob and Vicky Tabor and Russ Hart on our trip to India several months ago. Bob and Vicky are now in New York spending time with their newest grandchild, and Russ is in Japan, so you're left with the junior member of the team. Bob has been making this trip pretty much every year since the terrible tsunami that devastated the southeast coast of India in 2004. That's 20 years ago. Vicky has been with him on many of these visits, and Russ has gone for the past 5 years. When Bob returned from that very first trip, he created a foundation called the Southeast India Project that has raised thousands of dollars each year to help this desperately poor region of India recover and rebuild. One of the main benefactors has been our very own FPC, with many members of this congregation separately making donations of their own. And today, in recognition of the fact that the offertory plate will be shared with the Southeast India Project for the entire month of April, I'm asking everyone here to contribute as generously as possible to a cause that I recently saw for myself is doing an immense amount of good. The Southeast India Project has two main goals. The first is to continue providing a major source of funding for the Wide Children's Home in Tirunelveli. It is the only orphanage in a city of more than 200,000 people that caters for Dalits, the so-called untouchables, a caste that the government of India barely recognizes, let alone offers any financial assistance to. Thanks to so many of you, we brought 4 enormous boxes filled with tubes of toothpaste and jars of vitamins, as well as nail polish, games, chocolates, and other goodies for the kids. I wish you could have seen their faces as they eagerly unpacked the boxes and decided to start playing with the tubes and jars by building impromptu towers and all kinds of other structures as if they were Legos. These are kids that have virtually nothing. But the love and care they receive from Kumari, the woman who runs the home, and her staff is a wonder to behold. You can imagine their joy when we took them to a local cinema to watch a Bollywood-style movie, and several days later when we spent an evening in the city enjoying some delicious street food as well as ice cream. Please bear in mind that it is your financial support for the last few years that has helped the Wide Children's Home keep going. The second main goal of the Southeast India Project is to fund a series of programs run directly by a couple of major non-governmental organizations, NGOs, with which Bob has developed a very close relationship for the last 20 years, and they are doing extraordinary work. Again, I got to see this for myself firsthand during our trip. We went to one Dalit village where a lot of the money we raise goes into a micro-loan program for women's self-help that enables them to buy herds of dairy cows, not only to support themselves, but also to sell milk at a profit to others. The latest venture is establishing a seed bank where local farmers can buy what they need to grow organic crops with in order to yield maximize profits. It's worth noting that 100% of these microloans have been repaid. We also visited the desperately poor tribal village of Sharnugar, which the Southeast India Project has supported for the past 2 decades. Bob told me that when he first went there in 2004, the villagers were living in primitive mud huts with no running water. Now they have modern concrete houses with electricity and indoor toilets. Initially, an elementary school was built, then a community center, and more recently, a tailoring school with foot-treadle sewing machines so that the young women of Srinagar can earn money by making and selling clothing. While we were there, the tribal elders asked if we could immediately provide another 4 more of these sewing machines, and Bob happily handed over $400, and within a couple of days, they'd been purchased and were up and running. As you can see, your money goes a long way. Everywhere the 4 of us went, we were treated like royalty. I was struck by how incredibly gracious and thankful all of the villagers were. They are deeply appreciative of what Bob, Vicky, and Russ have been doing to materially improve their lives over the years. And they wanted us to be sure to thank all of you for the key financial role you have performed by helping to make so many good things happen for them. And now, please give as generously as you were able.
to a wonderful video that she and a local orchestra had put together of playing Finlandia in that time when we couldn't be together, and they had done it virtually. It was a wonderful video and such a gift to our congregation to be able to use that. So thank you for bringing Finlandia to us once again. This is part 2 of a sermon I started last month and ran out of time on, which was to talk about the Article 2 bylaws change of the Unitarian Universalist Association. For people who are new to this topic or who missed last month's sermon or last year's sermon, or who are new to our community, that sounds rather prosaic that I'm talking about a bylaws change at the denominational level. But what's happening is that we have in the Unitarian Universalist bylaws a statement of principles. And these are known as the Unitarian Universalist principles. They begin with the inherent worth and dignity of every person. You should all have a handout of them. And they end with our respect for the interdependent web of life of which we are all a part. And what's happened over the years since these were voted on in 1985, I believe, was the last vote to put these into place, is that they've become something of a real touchstone for a lot of Unitarian Universalists. And so while we have a process of examining the principles every 15 years, they've been seldom changed to much at all. And in fact, the last big revision that was proposed was voted down. And that may happen with this one as well. But I think it's much more likely to pass this time around. And so I wanted to prepare us for that, partly because this may change, and life is changeable sometimes, and that's hard. I'm really attached to those principles. I grew up with them. I was only 15 when they were put into place, and I don't remember a time before them, really. And so I wanted to look at this proposal of replacing the principles with the values and talk about why the values are important. What are they trying to say? And whether we vote for them or not, and we may decide we don't want to vote for them, whether we vote for them or not, I think they're making an important message to us about what Unitarian Universalism is about now. They're talking to us about things that the principles don't say that I think are important. So last time I got through the JET of JetPig, and that's no surprise then that you couldn't remember part of what PIG stands for, because we didn't get to those last time. I talked a little bit about interdependence, but I didn't talk at all about pluralism. And pluralism is a totally new value being put into Article 2. And one of the things it's speaking to is the diversity that we are as Unitarian Universalists, that we are diverse in race, we're diverse in class, we're diverse in culture and in LGBTQ, gender identity, sexuality, and we are also diverse in theology. And that's a real foundational part of who we are as Unitarian Universalists, that we are diverse in theology. And surprisingly, our existing principles don't say that. They don't say that we are a group of people who come together and worship together, but some of us are agnostic, some of us are atheist, some of us are Christian, some of us are pagan, some of us are Jewish, some of us are Hindu, some of us are Buddhist, some of us are theist, but not specifically Christian. What else? What else are you that I've forgotten? We have a wide variety. I mean, I know that all the ones I just said, there's somebody in this congregation who identifies with each of those. Muslims, maybe, in our congregation. Hindu, did I say Hindus? Anyway, this diversity hasn't been represented by our principles, and I think it's one of the really neat things that our values are proposing to make sure is explicit in our statement of who we are or what we are about. Interdependence I did talk about a little bit last time, and to point out that our current principles say we have respect for the interdependent web of which we are a part. And our covenant in the principles is just the covenant to affirm and promote as congregations these things. One of the exciting things to me about this value of interdependence, the way it's written in the values, is that it's a lot more robust. And it gives it a lot more teeth. That right now, in 1985, where were we on environmentalism? I mean, Earth Day was a thing. Hadn't been for all that. Like, Earth Day started around 1970 something, early 70s, and maybe 1970 itself. Yeah, the year I was born, Earth Day. By the time I was a teenager, it had gained hold, but still, we weren't where we are now with respect to understanding the environment's needs and the way we've been destroying it. And our younger generations in particular, like this is foremost on their minds all the time because they know they're growing up in a world that is dying in so many ways. And that we've been ringing our bell here at the 11th hour all last year on the 11th day of the month to recognize we're in the 11th hour of climate change. And so it's time for us as a faith to be more demanding on this issue, to be more dedicated on this issue. And the value statement really does have a little bit more behind this environmentalism. And then lastly, generosity. Generosity is something we don't, I made a joke when we were talking about pledging in here that they say that Catholics can talk about money, but they can't talk about sex, and we can talk about sex. But we can't talk about money. Generosity principle is not all about money, despite the fact that on the petals they colored it green, even though I had warned them against that. It's really about being generous of spirit in so many ways, how we bring our time and our talents and our treasures, all three, to our communities, and how we are generous of spirit in giving back to the world around us. And that's something that's worth naming. And so those are the things that I didn't cover last time that are in the values that I think are worth taking a look at. And I wanted to say about those interdependence and generosity values. In interdependence, you see the word interdependence, but you also see the word interdependence and generosity. And in both of those two, you see the word mutuality. And that, I think, is because we're pulling in the legacy of Martin Luther King, who talks in one of his speeches about mutual respect that we need to have, and he connects that to the concept of how we are all interrelated, as he said. So these words are echoing back and pulling in voices of people who we consider prophetic, even when they're not part of our tradition. Another thing that we don't sometimes pay as much attention to in Article 2 is what is called the sources. Sometimes people think that that's the purposes in the principles and purposes, but it's called the sources, and it just follows in the principles section after the principles, and it says the sources from which we draw are, and it lists off, 6 of them? Count bullets for me. 6? 6. It lists off world religions. It lists off Judeo-Christian heritage specifically. It lists off prophetic people, which used to say prophetic men and women, and we did change that to say prophetic people. It lists off direct experience, and a couple more things, spiritual, earth-centered traditions. What's the one I'm forgetting? Humanist. That counsels us not to heed the results of science. Yeah, I think that one mixed up with prophetic people and kind of combined into one in my mind. So those 6 sources from which we draw are enumerated. And one of the problems with this enumeration is when you list things off, it sort of gives questions of what did you not list off. And there had already been a movement afoot to say, why do we specifically pull out, when we say world religions, first of all, why do we specifically pull out Jewish and Christian? And there was a movement afoot to say, let's specifically add Islam, especially with all the Islamophobia going on in the world right now. Let's add Islam, specifically name it. The problem is, once we start doing that, we're naming Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, why haven't we named Hinduism? Why haven't we named Buddhism specifically? And when you look at the history, I would argue, well, it lists Christianity because Unitarianism and Universalism both come out of Christian roots historically. But when you look at our history is rife with the ways in which we have been interconnected with other world religions too. I've been just diving into this last month in new ways, and just so excited to read about how Hinduism affected Unitarian Universalism and changed it. And the Transcendentalists, Emerson, Thoreau, they were reading the Bhagavad Gita, and they were incorporating that into our theology, and Transcendentalism changed our faith. Similarly, Islam had an important impact on the early Unitarian church when it was developing in Romania, and in the thoughts of Michael Servetus, one of the first Unitarian preachers who was burned at the stake for his Unitarianism. When you read his book on the errors of the Trinity, he's quoting the Quran in it. So the Quran is embedded in Unitarian Universalism from the start. So why aren't we listing these things out separately? So once that movement became afoot and the Article 2 Commission was looking at what do we do with the overall, they changed it to say, let's not enumerate in the list. Let's talk more broadly in a paragraph form. And I think that that does a really good thing in breaking down that list. One problem it had last year was it didn't speak to the fact that we don't just draw from text. We don't just draw from people who are prophets and teachers. We also draw from our own direct experience. And so wonderfully, a colleague of mine, Matthew Johnson, pulled together a team of ministers to write an amendment. And it was one of the few amendments that passed last year was to add direct experience in that first sentence of this section. Because it's really critical in Unitarian Universalism, I think, and something again that we get from our transcendentalist heritage, that we don't just listen to texts and we don't just listen to people authorities, but we consider ourselves also individual authorities as to religious truth. And then it ends with something that I think is another really important factor in Unitarian Universalism, really important thing about us that makes us different, which is that, as James Luther Adams said, revelation is not sealed, right? In one of his 5 smooth stones that I give to the new members in the new member ceremonies, James Luther Adams talked about revelation is not sealed. And that's a critical thing in Unitarian Universalism. We are not done discovering the truth. We are listening to the results of science. We are listening to the results of our hearts. We are listening to the world as it speaks to the very earth itself as it groans out in pain. We are listening and we are growing and we are learning, and we are not done and never will be with discovering religious truth. And that's something, again, that the principles didn't explicitly say, but which is embedded deep in our faith, in which the values are trying to bring out. So whether we vote for these values or not, they are trying to pull out parts of our faith that we haven't been talking about, but which are deeply, deeply important to us. I know religious freedom and diversity are important to you. I know that the search for truth is important to you. And I think that these values are reflecting them. So that's what I wanted to share with you today about Article 2. And to open it up and say, we're going to be voting on this as an association in June. We have 2 people in our congregation who've said that they're interested in being delegates to that General Assembly. We have space for 4 more. If you'd like to be involved in that way, let me or Jenni Edgerton or both of us know. But also, if you'd just like to understand more about this or you have any questions, please come up to me at any time. As you can see, I could talk on and on and on about denominational politics. I can tell you the nitty-gritty on some of these things and why this week came this way. I've been delving it out. And so this is an ongoing conversation. This isn't a proclamation that is said and done. It is a living, growing, evolving thing. And may that ever be true for our faith. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 1017. Please rise in body or in spirit. closing words are titled Conclusion by David O. Rankin. He writes, "So let me tell you of a lesson I have learned in the ministry. I have learned not to take my position too seriously, or my image too seriously, or myself too seriously. I have learned that the most important item in the religious community is the people of the religious community. And I have learned that the real church can be defined as the most intimate relationships. How we talk and touch each other, how we share and protect each other, how we welcome new friends and forgive old enemies, how we love each other in all the myriad ways that love can be expressed. That is the church. Blessed be. Amen."